Howdy, sir. Howdy, ma'am. How y'all doing today? Hey everybody, how you doing? Tekking101 here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Portgas D. Ace. That's right, the Fire Fist himself, because he's got himself his own light novel. We'll be addressing that today. And of course, because we're talking about Ace, we got to talk in kind of a cowboy accent. Because if you look at Ace's hat, it's a hat that kind of resembles one that you might find in the great state of Texas, son. Yeehaw! All right. You know what? I'm honestly kind of surprised, because that seems like something 4Kids Entertainment would have done, right? Like, 4Kids back in the day would have looked at Ace's design and saw the hat, and like, all right, well, he's wearing a cowboy hat, let's give him a cowboy accent. Howdy there, Luffy! After we're done here in this desert kingdom, how about we go and catch ourselves a rodeo? Yeehaw, son! All right, no, but no, they didn't do that. They changed his name, though. They changed his name in the 4Kids dub from Ace to Trace. Portgas D. Trace. That's right. It just doesn't flow as well, right? Yeah, plus the whole reference to the playing card is just thrown out the window. I've heard, like, conflicting reasons. Nobody knows for certain why they changed it. Some people say it's because Ace is an alcoholic drink and they didn't want to have a reference to that, but that's probably not the case because Captain Morgan was also a character and they didn't change his name, and that's a rum, so yeah. Other people said it's because it's referencing gambling because, ooh, if you just reference the card of the Ace of Spades, and that's gambling reference, and, like, Standards and Practices was like, no. So I don't get it myself, but yeah. They kind of did the southern accent for Robin, because Robin also wears a similar looking, like a cowgirl hat during the Alabasta arc when she's Miss All Sunday, so they kind of made her sound like a southern belle, which I have to admit was vaguely erotic in some way. But unfortunately, no, we're not talking about Robin today, although I think you could also make a Robin light novel work. I mean, definitely. I mean, there's so much stuff that happens in her backstory. Do it! Come up, after we have the Ace novel, now I have the Robin novel, the story of the blooming flower of Nico Robin. Yeah, I would definitely read that. Alright, but no, today we're talking about the One Piece, Ace's Story Novel A. And, I'll admit, right out of the gate, this little logo down here, they use that very prominently in the book. It's like a really cool stylized A, and I'm thinking, alright, that's pretty neat. But the entire time I was reading this book, and it pops up quite a bit, it pops up a few times, it pops up like right here in between the chapters, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool symbol for this novel, that's neat. It wasn't until I was actually editing it, like photoshopping it for this logo down here, that I noticed. Do you see what's inside of the A? There's a spade inside of the A. Yeah, not my best moment there. It took me way longer to notice that than it should have. Also took me way longer to notice there's an arrow inside of the FedEx logo. Anyway, so, yeah, One Piece Light Novel A. There's actually going to be two of these. This is the first one, The Formation of the Spade Crew. The second one will be coming out in English, I believe, in September, okay? So these actually came out a couple years back in Japan. I think in 2018 these came out, and I knew about their existence. I've talked about them in videos before. I think I even did a video, because in the, actually the back of this, we get, like, concept art for all the members of the Spade Crew. We don't explore every single one. We only focus on, like, the main group here. So Ace, obviously, Deuce. This is a guy named Mihar. This is a dude named Skull. And they have a little kitty cat named Kotatsu. You know, little lynx that hangs out on their crew. So these are the ones, these are like the main cast, and then Ace, as well as this young lady right here, who is a Marine ensign that is a sort of like Ace's rival in this. I originally was going to say that this lady, Nailing Asuka, is her name, because she uses a rapier, so Nailing Asuka, like nailing you, okay? But no, you assume that they're like, okay, this is like Luffy and Smoker, you know, they're sort of like rivals in that particular, you know, context. I don't want to say Isuka has the hots for Ace, but Isuka totally has the hots for Ace. But their relationship is interesting. So what I'm going to do, I'm reading this book. It only took me about an hour and a half to get through it, but I've noticed the first chapter kind of has a lot of information packed into it. So what I'm going to do is devote this video to the first chapter of the book, and then I'll do another video on chapters 2 and 3. Because chapters 2 and 3 kind of flow into each other. Chapter 1 is sort of like the beginning of Ace's adventure. He meets Deuce on an island, the island of Sixis in the East Blue. He gets the Mera They make the Striker. There's a lot of stuff to unpack, and we find out a lot about Deuce's and Ace's backstory. A lot of exposition in the first chapter. The second chapter is more about, like, the Spade Pirates already have assembled. You know, Ace already has the ship. They're already, you know, making their way through the Grand Line. And the third chapter is when they arrive at the Sabaody Archipelago on their way to the New World. They have a run-in with Isuka, as well as a Vice Admiral of the Marines, which is sort of like the final battle for Ace in this novel. Something else to also mention mention here is that this character, Mass Deuce, is actually the narrator. So even though it's like Ace is all over the novel, I'm covering up his face, even though Ace is all over this, and it's like a super shiny, I love the holographic there with the flames, that's pretty damn neat. Yeah, Ace is actually not the main character in the sense of like we get to see things from his perspective. The author of this was Sho Hinata. And obviously Oda did the artwork on like the cover and everything. Like he drew Ace and Deuce and Isuke and everybody. Sho Hinata was the person that actually wrote it. I don't know. Maybe they just felt like I don't want to write Ace's character as like from first person because that's like Oda's character. So I don't want to mess anything up. So you kind of have to be like, you know, that's Oda's territory. I'm going to create another character just for the purposes of this book, Mass Deuce, and he's going to be our main character. He's going to be the person that we see everything from his perspective. So the story opens up with him being stranded on the island and his perspective on everything. Meeting Ace, his impression of Ace, and how he feels about him being the captain and like the kind of person he is and what he wants to do with his life. But okay, let's dive right into chapter 1 here. There is a prologue, but the prologue is very brief. It's like not even a whole page, and it just talks about like, you know, his name was Portgas Ace. He was born in Batteria in the South Blue, and his dad is Goldie Roger, king of the pirates, you know. So that's all we get from the prologue. So chapter 1. So it opens up with Deuce being stranded on an island called Sixis in the east. Now here's something I have to bring up, just the comparisons, because all the information I had on this book up until when I actually read it in English was what I could read on the wiki and like summaries that I found on the internet. And all of the descriptions of Sixis, this island, is like it's a desert island where there's not much on it. It's just an island where they washed ashore, they shipwrecked, and they're stuck there, and there's really not much there. The book actually, to the contrary, explains that Sixis is quite a beautiful looking island. In fact, from a distance, it looks like it's a paradise. You know, you'd see this beautiful island with lush greenery and stuff and be like, oh my god, it looks so gorgeous in the distance. But there's a bunch of like whirlpools and dangerous currents around the island, so it's sort of like you can get there really easily, but your ship will probably get destroyed and, you know, you won't be able to get off then. And even if you build a raft or something, you'll constantly get stuck, you know, heading out of the island. The raft will get destroyed, so there's really no way to get off the island once you get on it. And this is explained by Deuce, who got my hair. This is explained by Deuce, who very early on, he's on the shore just kind of like dehydrated and starving to death. He's been on the island shipwrecked for like 3 days, and he's just sitting there and he's like talking to like the skeleton of a pirate that landed here like years ago, and he's already like, okay, buddy, we're coming soon. Yo ho ho ho, yo ho ho. You know, he's sitting on the island and he's just thinking about stuff. And then that's when he meets Ace. Ace is just kind of walking on the beach and he's like, oh, hey, another person's here. How you doing? I'm Portgas Ace. And he's like, he's like, I've been trapped here for 6 days. How about you? So Ace is a little bit more energetic, a lot more vital than Mass Deuce is. By the way, his name Mass Deuce is not his real name. Go figure. It's a name actually Ace gives him because he doesn't actually give his real name. We don't know what his real name is. Also the reason why he wears a mask. Mass Deuce is not a pirate. He's not a bounty hunter. He's not a revolutionary. He's nothing like that. He is an adventurer. That's what he would call himself. He wants to travel the world to basically write a great adventure novel like Bragman. Bragman being kind of an obscure One Piece reference. It's the book that I think only gets brought up like once during Little Garden when Nami, they encounter all the dinosaurs and the giants and stuff, and she goes into the Mary and she finds Bragman, and she pulls up that entry by Louis Arnault, who was an adventurer that lived like 100 years ago. And he talks about how he landed on Little Garden and he met like the giants, Dory and Broggy, and that's why he called it like, to them, to the giants, it's a little garden. Okay, but to a human it'd be like, oh my god, dinosaurs, giants, this place is crazy, right? So I think that's the only time Bragman is mentioned. I think we also get to see it during the O'Hara backstory with Robin, like we see Bragman like it as part of the books that they're trying to save, but beyond that we don't get to see it. So nice little reference there. And he's like, I read Bragman, and I wanted to be an adventurer, so he went out to sea to be an adventurer. The reason he wears a mask is because the Marines a lot of times do not differentiate between, like, bounty hunters or, you know, adventurers. Like, a lot of times they might just mistake you for being a pirate, and you might get a bounty, and getting a bounty in this world, if you're a pirate, that's kind of something you, like Ace and Luffy, they want to have big bounties. They're like, yeah, that's how you know you're making it big as a pirate. But for a lot of other people, including Deuce, he's like, I don't want a bounty, so I'm not going to use my real name, I'm going to use a fake name, a pen name, and I'm going to wear a mask, because as we all know, wearing this simple carnival mask that barely covers your eyes, there's no way the Marines would be able to tell, you know, who this person is, especially with your light, you know, cyan blue hair. You know, be like, wait, hold on, I'm going incognito for this one, I'm gonna take off the mask. Oh, we have no idea who that guy is, right? Okay, so anyway, The name Deuce, he doesn't come up with that. Ace actually does, because Ace is like, well, what am I supposed to call you if you won't give me your real name? And he's like, well, you know what? I actually do like the name Ace. That does sound pretty damn cool. Maybe I'll use it as a main character in my novel. And Ace is like, you can't use my name. It's my name. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever. And then Ace, just call me whatever you want. And Ace is like, okay, well, how about Deuce? And Deuce is like, oh, that makes sense because Deuce means 2, Ace means 1. I see what you did there. That's kind of clever. I kind of like that. And Ace is like, oh, yeah, that also. I just called you that because I thought it sounded cool. Actually, let's call you Mask Deuce because you're wearing a mask. Cool. And Mask Deuce is like, keep in mind, he's on a rock. He's like starving and dehydrated. He's just like, yeah, whatever, fine, call me, I don't care. You know, it is kind of funny here in like the Western kind of culture because a deuce, like, it doesn't get used very often, but like if you go up to somebody and say, I gotta go take a wicked deuce, that means you gotta go number 2. You see where I'm going here? And if you ever watched Family Guy, I guess, you know, what the deuce? You know, that's okay. So that's the only time I think it ever popped up in my life. But yeah, deuce, number 2. Different culture, I guess it doesn't mean, like, Deuce thought he was okay, so, all right, fine, I'll go with it, fine, okay, cool. So, they kind of talk about their backstories a little bit, and this is at the point in the book where I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. I kind of felt the dialogue was maybe forced a smidge here. Keep in mind a few things. Number 1, light novel, not a real big book. You don't have a lot of space to work with. If this was a novel similar to, like, you know, like, if it was something like this that we're working with here, and we had, like, you know, 600 pages of really, you know, close dialogue here, and like, okay, over the course of this entire adventure, Ace and Deuce are gonna get to know each other, and like sprinkled throughout the book, we learn a little bit about Deuce's past, we learn a little bit about Ace's past, we learn about how they actually founded the Spade Pirates, how they got their ship, how they, you know, recruited each individual member of the crew. But we don't have that luxury. It's a light novel. We only have 3 chapters to work with here, and we got a lot of characters we need to introduce. We got a lot of stuff we need to do here. So yeah, chapter 1 is just focused on Deuce and Ace getting to know each other, so some of the dialogue is kind of just forced to get us where we need to be. Case in point. Deuce is talking about his parents, and, well, his dad and his older brother. It's just like, yeah, my dad and my big brother, they don't like me very much. You know, they're both doctors. I kind of came from a more, not like maybe a noble family, but a really well-off family of doctors, and they wanted me to be a doctor too, and I had a little bit of medical experience, but it's like, I really don't want to do that. I want to go out to sea and be an adventurer, okay? That's what I want to do. And because of that, his parents, I mean, his dad and his brother were kind of like, you know, treating him like, you know, trash, kind of like, you're not one of us. You're just, you always get in the way, you know, you're like the outcast of the family, so get away. So Deuce did not really have a good upbringing in his life, okay? So he tells this story to Ace. And then Ace kind of responds with like, well, I have a little brother. He's not related to me by blood, but, you know, I care about him like he's family, and he's always getting in crazy shenanigans and everything like that, so I care about him. I'm worried about him, right? But I'm out here doing my own adventure, right? So this is where we get into the line of dialogue, because Deuce is going to find out that Roger is Ace's dad. But, slight problem, Ace does not like his dad, and it wouldn't make a lot of sense for the character of Ace to be like out of nowhere, by the way, my dad was Goldie Roger, king of the pirates, you know? He wouldn't say that. He's not proud of the fact, and also he knows saying that would probably cause more harm than, you know, good. So, instead, we have this line of dialogue. This is how it actually plays out in the light novel, okay? So Ace talks about Luffy, his little brother, and then Deuce is like, oh, well, you might not be related by blood, but at least you have family. I bet you got a mom and a dad, too. And Ace is like, nah, my mom died right after she gave birth to me. Actually, the name Portgas, that comes from her. But yeah, she died right after I was born, so I don't remember my mom at all. He's like, oh, well, your dad then. I bet you remember your dad. You had some good memories with him. He's like, actually, my dad also was, he died like a long time ago. I didn't even know my dad. He's like, yeah, he's like, oh, I bet you had some happy memories with him. He's like, yeah, he already did. I'm like, oh, okay. I bet he was an upstanding guy. He's like, he was actually a criminal. I'm like, oh, well, I bet he was just a small garden variety criminal, not really much to write home about. It's not like your dad was Goldie Roger, king of the pirates, or anything like that. Man, I hate that guy. It's a good thing your dad's not him, right? And Ace is just kind of like, no way. Your dad's Goldie Don't tell anyone. Holy crap! But at any rate, that's how Deuce finds out that Roger is Ace's dad. All right, so that's like backstory, kind of just like exposition. Like, all right, now you know about me, I know about you. That's great. Okay, we're still stranded on this island. Deuce goes into a little bit of explanation about the geography of the place. There is a forest and a jungle, and there's animals there, but he can never catch the animals, and he just kind of tries to eat the fruit, but they don't taste very good. There's a scene where he's attacked by ants, and he's so damn hungry, he takes the ants and even tries to eat the ants. It really just kind of goes to like, okay, these are, you know, people that are starving and like dehydrated. There is a little bit of water that they can collect out of a spring, but not very much of it. And he's there and he's just like trying to collect water, and it's like, you know, like 3 swigs after like hours of collecting it. So it really goes into like the whole shipwreck thing and how desperate you're going to be. You're going to start eating probably sand or rocks at some point, right? So eventually Ace actually, he keeps trying to like, you know, build a raft and go out to sea, but he keeps failing, and he keeps asking, hey Deuce, come and help me build a raft. And Deuce is like, yeah, no, you do that, buddy. Okay, I'm going to go over here and try to find food. So it's still a while before they, Ace trusts Deuce. It's just Deuce doesn't really trust Ace. Also considering he finds out that he's like, you know, Goldie Roger's your dad. You want to be a pirate. I don't want anything to do with pirates. I just want to write my adventure novel. I'm not even, the crap that I even ended up in this situation, right? But eventually, Ace discovers the Maramaranomi. Now, the original way I read this online was that the fruit was found on the island of Sixis, like the tree. Like there was a tree, a devil fruit tree, or not a devil fruit tree, but you know, like the fruit was reincarnated on a tree in the island. But no, apparently it wasn't. Apparently Ace just finds it on the beach, meaning that he assumes that the fruit just washed ashore like they did. So that actually adds a whole other dimension to this, I think. You know, it's just like, okay, so somebody else had the Maranomi, maybe died on a pirate ship, and then the ship maybe sunk, and then the fruit was just trapped in the currents and just washes ashore on this island. So that's actually a pretty cool way to do it, I think. Because this island is so isolated, I guess. Like, unless somebody that already had the Maranomi got trapped on the island, then died, and then the fruit got reincarnated. But, you know, because it's through the Maranomi they actually get off of the island. That gives them the mechanism to actually leave. So it wouldn't make much sense if that was the case. So yeah, it just apparently drifts ashore and they find it on the beach. Ace finds it. And Deuce kind of sees him with the fruit and he kind of goes all hunger crazy and tries to kill Ace with a stick. It just like sneaks up behind him like, I'm gonna hit him with the stick and take that nice, juicy, flame, unusually, you know, designed fruit. Huh! And then Ace kind of turns around and he's like, oh, hey, Deuce, how you doing? Oh, that's a nice stick, man. He's like, yeah, nice stick. Yeah, this is a great stick, man. This is the finest stick I found. Anyway, where'd you get that fruit, buddy? And so Ace is very generous, of course, and so he's a nice guy, and so he just cuts the fruit in half. You want some? We'll both have it. You know, we haven't eaten in a while. So he cuts the fruit in half, gives one part to Deuce, eats the other half. Ace takes the first bite, which results in him getting the devil fruit powers. Deuce eats it, all of it. And that's another scene that I really like because it explains, once again, the starvation aspect. Like, if you haven't eaten anything in, like, a week, even if you eat, like, the most disgusting piece of fruit you can imagine, like a rotted piece of fruit, it would probably taste delicious, or at least tolerable, because it's like, oh my god, actual food in my mouth, you know, like, so devil fruits are disgusting, but even Deuce says, like, oh, it was far from being a good tasting fruit, but you know what, it was just so long since I've eaten anything, this thing, it tasted divine. So he eats the fruit fine. But then Ace immediately lights up on fire. He's like, what's going on? Fire, I'm on fire. He's like, whoa, what's going on? Okay. It's like, I'm burning, but I'm not burning, but my clothes are fine, you know? Okay. So they don't know much about devil fruits. Well, Ace does, because Luffy has a devil fruit, although this is a Logie, a little bit of a different thing. Ace even name drops Luffy. He's like, yeah, my younger brother Luffy has the Gumu Gumu no Mi. It's actually kind of funny. He could stretch. I could turn into fire. Huh, crazy, weird. And so Deuce is just like, oh, okay, so it's a devil fruit. All right, cool, cool, cool. Now, this is also something that's really interesting, because a lot of times when you get a devil fruit in the story, whenever they train with it, they kind of do it off screen. We never really get a moment where it's like, okay, you just ate a devil fruit, what's all the stuff you can do with it? Like, what's the full extent of what you can and can't do? What's the full scope of this power? And so when Ace eats the fruit, he's like, I'm on fire. Deuce is pretty smart. He immediately starts to think, like, wait a second, Ace, can you control, like, the output of your flame? Can you have, like, propulsion? Could you, like, shoot out, like, a jet of fire to, like, propel yourself back or, like, forward or whatever? And Ace is like, well, I don't really know if I can do that, but it seems like I could. It doesn't really seem that hard to do that. Yeah, we could do that. So they spend a few days on the island training Ace and his Maramaranomi, getting more accurate with shooting his fire, turning into fire. It also goes into explain of how useful fire is in a shipwreck situation. They talk about how, you know, rather than just have a campfire now, we don't have to worry about gathering, you know, starting a fire or anything. We just have a campfire whenever. We can get, like, vegetables from the jungle and we can cook them and they actually taste good. We can use it to boil water, you know, so it's not contaminated. deactivated, so it's safer to drink. So it's really cool how they go into all the different uses you could have, like with a Marinomi in like on a desert island. Not a desert island, it's a rather nice island, but yeah. So there's also apparently a treasure on the island, but everybody just dies when they get there. So it's like, oh, it's a beautiful island. There must be a treasure there. And then you get shipwrecked, and then there's nothing else beyond that. So it's kind of like the bait. You know, it's like, oh, there's a treasure there. And then you get shipwrecked, and there's nothing, right? Because they don't find a treasure. Although at the end of the chapter, there is a nice little heartwarming moment where they're like sailing away, and they're like, man, I guess there was no treasure on that island. And Ace is like, well, I don't know about that. The real treasure was friendship. He doesn't actually say that. He's like, the real treasure was meeting you and our partnership, and the Spade pirates begin today. You know, that's kind of cool thing. But they use the power of the Marinomi to leave the island. This is the plan. Deuce is like, all right, we'll build another raft, and we'll actually use the fire to like treat the wood. So not like burning the wood to a cinder, but like just like charring it, I guess, on the surface to make it like burning it to make it more durable. I guess that's a thing that you do. I've never actually known that, but I read it in the book, so I'm just gonna go with it. I read it in a One Piece light novel, so it's probably accurate. I'm assuming it is. Like, you treat the wood with fire and it's more durable whenever you're out at sea against like the salt water and stuff like that. So anyway, they make a ship, and they're going to use Ace's fire to like propel the ship through the waves and the current to escape the island, you know, the territory around the island. After they build the raft, though, Deuce christens it. He's like, I'm going to call this baby the Striker, which is the name of Ace's little boat that he uses, you know, when they meet him at Alabasta and everything like that. Here's the thing, though. I assumed, like, okay, they made, like, a prototype of the Striker, and then later on, Ace is going to redesign it, because the Striker that we see that Ace uses at Alabasta, it's got, like, a metal component to it. It's got all this extra stuff added to it. It doesn't look like something you just built on, like, a desert island. You know, it seems like something that took, like, an actual shipwright to properly create, right? But according to this final, like, there's like, little snippets at the end here that, like, connect it back to the manga. Here's some design art of Isuka. We're not going to find out about her until the second chapter. But there's, like, an interesting little panel here where, right here, Ace's beloved Striker was a collaboration with Deuce. Deuce designed the ship using the Flame Fruit power in order to escape Sixis. Ace was riding the same little ship when he met Luffy at Alabasta. So I think we honestly have a little bit of like Ship of Theseus kind of thing going on here, where they build the original Striker on the island out of just a bunch of random trees and just charring the wood, and that's all they had. They didn't have, like, there's like a metal engine as part of like a propeller for the part of the Striker, and then Ace stands on the center part and he charges it up with the Marinomi and powers the propeller in the back, like the paddles, right? But I guess maybe they took this ship and then just slowly modified it over time, and that's what the Ship of Theseus is. The Ship of Theseus goes, like, if you replace every part of a ship with different parts until the entire ship is replaced, is it still the same ship? So maybe that's what they did. They had this old scrappy ship that they used to escape the island, and they used that for a little while. Then they actually got a proper pirate ship, like the Spade pirate ship, and then they started to, like, modify the Striker, maybe move some wood, add some actual better wood on there, and add, like, the whole propeller and the paddles and everything, and the little contraption there to add, like, Ace's fire to it to get it to move. And it's technically the same ship, but it's been modified so much it looks completely different. So is it the same ship? Is it really? So anyway, they do that, they construct the Striker, they get on board, they fire off from Sixis, and head on to the horizon to create the Spade Pirates. Well, the Spade Pirates are formed officially there, with just Ace and Deuce. Just like, you know, the Straw Hats officially began. You know, we got Luffy and we got Zoro, that's all we need! So they head out into the sunset, and that's begins the adventure of a lifetime. Until Akainu, you know, punches his time card. You know, punches a hole right in the ace, quite literally. But yeah, no. So that was chapter 1. And like I said, that took me a little while to get through because chapter 1 had a lot of stuff, a lot of exposition, a lot of interesting stuff we find out about Deuce and Ace. Next chapter is going to be mostly focused on the Spade crew, at least the main crew of the Spade crew. So there's a fellow by the name of Mihar, who they call Teach. So I was a little confused by, hey, Teach! And I was like, whoa, is Blackbeard here already? Like, no, not quite yet. There's just a guy there named Mihar. We actually get to see him in the anime. The guy with the top hat. He's a member of the crew. Skull, who's like their info gatherer. Deuce himself. And a little kitty cat named Kotatsu, who's a lynx that Ace rescues from like a trap on an island. and they just pal around together. So that's like the second chapter, kind of focusing on that, also introducing Isuka in the second chapter, and then the third chapter is you go to the Saboti archipelago, and the whole, like, the final battle is there in this book. And then the next novel comes out in September, and I'll be reviewing that then. So anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you back here next time for chapters 2 and 3. Tekking, signing out, y'all.